Hey guys, I'm Luke from TBD CNC. Today I'm going to cover some of the basics of installing our Supergrade Screwdrive kit on your x-carve. So after you've disassembled your x-carve, the first thing that we're going to do is install your limit switch onto the side plate. This is the side plate that you want to install it on. It ships with these little 3D printed fake switches here. That just helps show you how the hardware goes and make everything a little bit easier. So we're going to pull this one off. It is important that you put these screws back in the same orientation that they came out. Otherwise you might run into the V-wheel. When you install the switch, you want the plunger to be up. Alright, that looks good. Now we're going to move on to the V-wheels. So if you order V-wheels with your kit, we'll pre-install them for you, but if not, you'll need to install them yourself. You're going to take this V-wheel hardware bag, just pour it out on the table. Be careful not to lose anything. If you do, there is a spares kit though. These are the eccentric nuts. They're custom made for us to work well with the 1/4" plate, make sure it won't chew up your plate over time and stuff like that. There's a dot, I don't know if you can see that, on the what we're going to call the bottom of the nut for installation purposes. So you want that nut to be at the bottom, or that dot to be at the bottom of the plate. Down here, you're going to put the nut in. We've got two different lengths of screw in here. The easiest way to tell them apart is one's going to have a section at the top that's not threaded, the other one's fully threaded. You want one of these, the longer ones. You're going to drop it through here, flip it over. You're going to take a washer out of the kit, drop it on, take a V-wheel off of your machine, drop it on there, another washer on top, and then a nut. Now for the upper V-wheels, you're going to take the shorter screw and a washer, put the washer on the screw, you're going to put it through this hole. It might be a little tight, but it should go. You use the lower holes here. The upper holes are for a linear rail upgrade that we'll be launching soon. Again, you'll flip it over. You're going to drop a washer on. That washer is very important, don't forget that. V-wheel, another washer, and then another nylock nut. You're going to repeat that for all 6 wheels on each plate if you have enough wheels. If not, just do the outside 4. And then after you're done, you're going to tighten up the nuts. This eccentric spacer uses a 10mm wrench, so if you need to adjust these, you're going to be looking for a 10mm. The next thing we're going to do is install the nut block onto your X-carriage. So you're going to take this off of your machine. You see I've already got the holes here, but I can show you how to get them. You're going to take this X-axis nut block and drill template bag. You see that there's 2 drill bits, the nut block with the hardware pre-installed there, and then a nice drill template. What you're going to do is you're going to put the drill template on there. It doesn't really matter where you put it, but the best place would be right in the middle, so there's 2 notches here to help you align it with that hole. The easiest thing to do is going to be to take a little bit of packing tape just to hold that in place. And then you're going to take the smaller of the 2 drill bits, which is an 1/8 inch, put it in your drill, and then just simply drill through the 2 holes here, down through the top. Once that's done, you can remove the drill guide, set it aside. You're going to switch out to the larger bit and just enlarge those 2 holes. Alright, so once you have the holes drilled, you're going to install the nut block. Comes with the hardware already in it. Again, just to show you how everything goes together. You're going to pull these screws out, leave the washers on them. So I put my fingers over the nuts to keep them from falling out. And then slide this in here, and I'm going to line up the holes. There's a little bit of a reach. Drop the screws down in. Alright, and then we're going to tighten these up. You don't really want to get these tight, all the way tight yet. Once you have the machine all the way together, you're going to loosen these up, tighten them back up, and that'll just make sure everything's aligned properly. The next thing we're going to do is install the side plates onto the wide maker slide. You can see I've got the X-carriage back onto the wide maker slide. We're going to take the bag that's labeled plate mounting hardware. This is going to have the screws for the side plates and the risers, so you're not going to use all these screws just yet. There's going to be some longer screws and some shorter screws that have T-nuts. We're going to use the longer screws for this step with washers. So I'm just going to go ahead and get 8 of these ready. So the side plates are going to have some weird holes here. You're going to use the lower ones. These upper ones are again for the linear rail upgrade. So we're going to take our side plate and just get these tight. So once you have the left side tight, you're going to go ahead and move on to the right side. Just do the same thing. And then tighten these up. So for the x-axis, I'm going to demonstrate a direct drive setup. So you're going to take the bag that's labeled acme rod ends. If you have a direct drive setup, this will have your couplers. If you have a belt drive setup, this will have pulleys. So I'm going to dump that out. We're going to take one of our screws. These screws ship separately because of their length. So if your kit shows up and your screws aren't there yet, it might be an extra day for the screws. So I'm going to take a coupler and I'm going to install it on the end of the screw. You don't want to install it super deep. So you're going to go all the way in and then pull it out just a little bit. And then I'm going to tighten this set screw. Okay. Now I'm going to take one of these 8mm washers, drop it on the screw, like that. And then I'm going to put the screw through the bearing. The flanges of your bearings should always be facing out on this kit. So once you get it in far enough, you're going to feed it into the nut block, and then you can start screwing just to get it all the way through the nut block out the other side. So you can see I've got it coming out the other side here, and now you line it up and put it through there. So I'm just going to push this over, and then you might have to get a little bit extra slack so you can get your hand in there. Line it up with the hole, slide it through. This should be all the way against there. So now we're going to take another one of these washers and one of these split shaft collars. Slide the washer on the shaft collar. These are really nice collars. You should never have a problem with them. You want to make sure there's not any slack. So you want to make sure the collar's all the way up against the washer and same on the other side. Otherwise that'll show as backlash in your machine. So tighten that up, and now our x-axis screw is installed. We can come back over to this side and work on the motor. So you're going to need to remove the pulley from your motor. We'll have another video on how to do that. You're going to take our standoff here. This is going to install like that. You want the opening down. That'll just help it not collect as much dust. I'm going to put that on the motor. You do want to make sure that the set screw on here is also facing down so that you'll be able to get to it once you get the motor installed. And put the motor on and drop in these screws. Alright, and then again, this opening we're going to face down. It won't face straight down because these are on an angle, but we line up the shaft of the motor into this collar. Slide it on there, and then I'm going to just start tightening these screws. I just want them all to catch. I don't really need to get them all tight just yet. Alright, and once you've got them all started, you can tighten them up. Alright, and then the last thing to do is to tighten that screw on the coupler, and that'll attach the motor to the screw. Now you're good to go on a direct drive setup. Now once you have the screw installed, we're going to go ahead and tighten these up, and that just makes sure that the nut block is aligned with the screw nicely. So now we're going to install the Y-axis maker slides and the risers / end plates. You can see I've got the gantry assembly up on blocks. That's just going to make everything a little bit easier for us. I'm going to go ahead and take these and just slide them in. You should find that they're fairly well adjusted with the nuts, with the dot on the nuts facing down. So these are for the front. The flange on the bearing always goes out. We're going to take our leftover plate mounting hardware. Again, the longer screws with washers. And we're going to install the riser plate on the front of the machine here. These are the same profile as our dust boot clearance risers, so you shouldn't have an issue with the dust boot running into your plates on the front. Alright, we're going to tighten these up, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Alright, once you have the front risers installed, you're going to move to the back of the machine, and we're going to install the back risers. Again, the flanged part of the bearing always goes out. Alright, now we're going to install the Y-axis Acme screws for a belt drive configuration. We did direct drive on the X. What we're going to do here on the belt drive, you're going to start with the collar. On direct drive, you start with the coupler and do the collar last. Belt drive, it's the opposite. So I'm going to install this with the collar flush with the end of the screw. Tighten it up. We're going to drop one of these washers on again. Anytime something rides against a bearing, you want one of those washers there. I'm going to slide this in. Alright, we're going to feed it into our nut block. And then we're going to make sure that we go past down here. Then we're going to feed the screw in the rest of the way and go through this bearing. So we're going to line it up with that bearing all the way through. Now we're going to work on this end. Again, we're going to drop one of these washers on here. And then one of these pulleys. Again, you want to make sure there's no slack in there. And you're going to tighten these set screws down. Nice and tight. Obviously, you don't want to strip them, but they're pretty good. So, and then your Acme screw is installed. All right, so for a belt drive install, you're going to use stepper mount hardware and motor pulleys and belts. I'm going to start with the motor pulleys and belts. Now these are 15mm Gates belts. They should last you pretty much forever. I'm going to put the pulley on my stepper. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. I don't really care about placement just yet. Alright, once we have the pulley on, we're going to take the screws from the stepper mount hardware bag. We need 4 of these. I'm going to take 2 of them to start. I'm just taking the nut off in one of the 2 washers. We're going to take a belt. We're going to hang it from the pulley. On your stepper motor, you want the power connector to face down. I'm going to put it in here, line the belt up, and then get the stepper motor in place. I'm going to drop a screw in, put a washer on, and then a nut. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite corner. And that's just going to hold the motor in place. Now I'm going to tighten these up. I don't want to get them all the way tight yet. I just want to hold the motor up close to the aluminum plate. So I'm going to back it back off just a little bit there. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. Back it off just a hair. Your motor should still be free, but it should be held pretty close to the plate. I'm going to pull the motor pretty tight and check the alignment on this pulley. It looks like I need to pull the pulley out just a little bit. There is a little bit of extra width on these, so you don't have to get them perfect. Alright, now I'm going to put the last 2 screws in. Alright, now to tension the belts, you're going to take a wrench or a screwdriver or something along those lines and wedge it between the stepper and the maker slide. You're going to push over, that's going to put some tension on your belt. The exact amount of tension on these belts isn't critical. They've got real nice aggressive teeth and they're 15mm wide, they're not going to jump on you. I'm going to put a wrench on here. If you have somebody to help you, the easiest thing would be to have them hold this, but I'm just going to wedge it in place. And then I'm going to tighten one of these screws. And that's going to hold the belt tension while you can go and tighten the rest of them. Good to go. Alright, now we're going to put the machine back on its base. So we're going to slide that in. You can use either a magnetic screwdriver, or in this case I've just put a magnet on this, and that's going to make it act like a magnetic screwdriver. I'm going to slide a T-nut in here. and I'm going to use this to push it. And it's nice for it to be magnetic, because then if you go a little bit too far, you can pull back. I'm just going to visually line it up and then put the screw in. Alright. These are the last screws out of the plate mounting hardware kit. And you're just going to repeat this process all the way around. Alright, so now we're going to install the drag chain spacers. This just moves the drag chain out to not interfere with the screw and all that. So we've got drag chain spacers and hardware. Gonna open this up. We're going to start with the upper drag chain bracket, which is this guy. You're going to take this off of your existing machine. We've got these nice custom drag chain spacers, and it says right there upper drag chain spacer. So I'm going to put my spacer on here. Alright, so we're going to install this upper drag chain spacer. Should look like that. The longer screw is at the back. It goes into the extrusion that holds your upper drag chain. There's no change to that, so you're just going to use the stock setup on that. And then this front bolt here gets a washer and a nylock nut. Be a little bit of a challenge to reach. Alright, now the lower drag chain mount. I'm going to pull this off. It comes with a T-nut. You probably already have one in there, so you won't need that. I'm going to drop the bolt down in there. Got this back on. There's a little T on this side that slides in the T-nut. That goes on the back, or slides in the extrusion. And then we're going to mount this right into our T-nut. Alright, now I'm going to reinstall my drag chain. And then same thing on top. Alright, you're ready to run your wires. If you want, you can use zip ties with these nice little holes that we've added to help you with your cable management. So here I can hold the wire in place, keep it from getting in the screw, just make everything a little bit neater. We get a lot of questions about direct drive versus belt drive. As you can see, this unit will it'll work with both. You just tell us which one you want and we'll provide the right parts. The big reason to choose belt drive is if you have an enclosure. You can see that direct drive sticks out quite a bit further than belt drive. They're going to perform about the same. A lot of people prefer direct drive just because it's a little bit simpler, but we really like the belt as well, so it's really up to you. So I hope this video helped you get your TBD CNC Supergrade Screwdrive kit put together. If you have any questions, you can email me, luke@tbdcnc.com, or you can call 1-855-4-TBD-CNC. And don't forget the most important step, labeling your machine.